Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the May 26, 2022 meeting of the Board of Business and Neighborhood Services. My name is Brian Madison. I'm the director of the agency and chair of the board. If our other board members would introduce themselves for us.
Hi, Belinda Drake, Far East Side resident, and this is my second term being on the board.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Catherine Shee, and I'm near Broader Bowl, and this is my first year.
Okay, great, thank you. And just in time to introduce herself, Camille, do you want to?
Sure.
We're just coming to order.
Okay. What am I sharing?
You're just introducing yourself. And
Just my name?
present, yeah.
Oh, Camille Blunt, present.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm a few minutes late.
It's all right. Thank you for joining us. And then at the table over there, we have Jessica Knight, our board liaison, and Caitlin Campbell is our counsel. And of course, we're joined by other members of staff of both Business and Neighborhood Services, Animal Care Services, and I think we have a guest from DMD, Metropolitan Development, today. So thanks for joining us, and anybody else who may be here today. So the first item is you received a copy of the agenda. Do we have consent for the agenda as published?
Consent.
Okay. And the first item is the minutes from the April 28th meeting of the board. You would have received an electronic copy of that. Are there any questions or comments, edits that need to be made to the minutes of that meeting? None?
No.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the April 28th meeting then?
So moved.
Got a first, is there a second?
Second.
And it's been properly seconded. All those in favor of the adoption of the April 28th meeting minutes will signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none. Those minutes have been approved. We don't have a formal report because that report will come by way of this next resolution. So we will be getting a report, but it's part of this resolution. So the first item on our agenda is Resolution 2022 C10-010, a regulation concerning the adoption of small cell aesthetic guidelines. This portion of the meeting is a public hearing, so Amy Wonder will present this matter on behalf of the department, and afterward, if there is anyone who is present and wishes to be heard in support of or against this regulation, you will be allowed to speak after the presentation. If there is anyone here who would like to comment, please give your name to the board secretary, Jessica Knight, on my far left, if you have not already done so. After the presentation, you'll be given 2 minutes to speak. The board secretary or council will let you know when your time is up. Jessica, will you please present the resolution to us?
So resolution number 2022-C10-010 with the point of contact as Amy Wonder is the adoption of small cell aesthetic guideline regulations. Pursuant to section 645-323 of the revised code, the small cell aesthetic guidelines provide direction for the development and construction of small cell facilities within the city of Indianapolis' right of way. The Department of Business and Neighborhood Services requests adoption of the regulation.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Amy Wonder. I am the administrator of the Bureau of License and Permit Services, and may need some technical assistance from my There we go. All right, good afternoon, and thank you again for your time to go over our small cell aesthetic guidelines today. Just keeping you on your toes here. Thank you, Jessica. So to get started, Chapter 645 of the revised code authorizes the Board of Business and Neighborhood Services to adopt regulations which apply to the public rights of way, which is why this regulation is going before this board today. In 2021, the Indiana General Assembly passed legislation that allows municipalities to provide basic, broad aesthetic guidelines for new small cell facilities. The City of Indianapolis seeks to promote well-designed and non-intrusive small cell facilities and support structures to provide wireless services to communities. These guidelines are intended to provide direction for design elements when developing and constructing new small cell facilities. Thank you. So there is a state statute that addresses small cells, and within that statute, this particular section provides that a municipality can establish procedures for permitting small cell facilities that addresses requests to install new utility poles or new wireless support structures within residential dwelling areas. These guidelines seek to address the commonly contested issues in relation to the construction of small cell facilities. These guidelines would be applied during the permitting process, and these guidelines would apply countywide to small cell facilities in the public right-of-way. This is a kind of a snapshot of what those aesthetic guidelines look like, and of course, throughout these particular sections, there are several standards that can expand upon those. And I've got some notes here to give you a bit of an idea for each. Some of them are self-explanatory, but excuse me. So the appearance of structures is considered. And so for example, the illumination must meet local, state, and federal regulations, and antenna equipment mounted to a support structure should be matching in color to the support structure. And that's, again, a condensed example of what might be addressed in those standards. Antenna wires and equipment placement. For example, the location of antennas, bearing of the wiring and fiber, the number of small cell facilities in a single intersection, etc. Identification. A distinct marker or tag shall be placed on a support structure for wireless facilities that will allow for ready identification. Painting requirements. These shall not include signage, for example, shall be painted to blend or match the building or support structure that they are attached to. And then finally, stealthing requirements. All small cell facilities shall utilize stealth and camouflaging methods to limit their visual impact where feasible, which is a kind of a brief summary of that section there.
Thank you, Amy. I guess before we move to questions from the board, I'd like to know if there is, did anybody sign up wishing to speak for or against the guidelines or just to the guidelines?
We have one, and that is Gary Potts.
Okay. Do you mind coming up and?
I do, but I will.
Well, we appreciate that.
My name is Gary Potts. I am the current president of the Eagledale Neighborhood Association. I'm also somewhat experienced with electronics. I spent 4 years in the Air Force with inertial guidance and radar navigation. I then had a career with Time Life at that time in cable television and telecommunications. As such, I sometimes get questions from my friends and associates about what is small cell. It's not a disease. I would like to find some answers that I can give them that make sense, and I'm having trouble doing that. We have now LTE, PCS, AWS, and other parts of the alphabet, all digital, which is before my time. The only digital was a medical procedure I would want to talk about. But why are we putting more electronics on short poles that have line-of-sight transmission, which isn't going to go very far, which explains the 500-foot spacing we're talking about on telephone poles. You utility poles, excuse me. Where are we headed with this stuff? We're introducing more radiation into the atmosphere and through our bodies. I know people don't want to talk about it, but radiation is dangerous. It accumulates. If you don't believe it, live underneath a high-tension power line for a few years. I take it there's no one here from the industry, so my questions are going to go unanswered. But this issue is just now coming to the public's attention, and there is concern about it out here. And that's my purpose for being here before this board. To let you know there's concern. We don't understand what's going on. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Questions?
Any questions specifically for, okay, well, I appreciate you taking time to come down here and share with us.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anybody else that hasn't had a chance to check in with our board liaison and would like to speak on the matter? Seeing no more? Okay, okay. Then I guess what I'll do is open it up. If you don't mind, feel free to join us here if anybody on the board has any other questions or comments.
Thanks for being here. I just was wondering if we can provide an answer to his concerns, even at a very high level.
Sure. So I think from a high level, it's important to realize that this is a state statute that dictates small cells. It's not something that the local municipality, decides, or it's not a part of the zoning ordinance. It's not a part of one of our local codes. So the state statute number that is on the third slide in the presentation. That's a particular section of the statute, but if you do search that and stop at 3, you'll see all of the applicable sections. And there is a part, and I'm no expert here, but there is a section in that statute that speaks to the radiation concerns that you mentioned, sir. And they reference some of the federal agencies that they have communicated with as it relates to those concerns.
So the point of this, today is to adopt what has been put out by the state?
No, so the state's statute is in effect. These guidelines only expand on the aesthetic impact of those small cells. So the small cells presently are able to be placed in the areas as outlined in that statute. This will create some aesthetic guidelines that they have to meet, which will hopefully improve, the visual impact, particularly in residential areas.
Yeah, Shannon, did you want to?
I'm so sorry.
You feel free to come up. Shannon
Okay,
Norman
yeah,
is a principal planner with DMD.
Yeah, thank you very much, and I don't want to jump too much in on Amy's presentation. She did a great job. But I've been working with VNS and also with the national consultant and the mayor's office on drafting these guidelines for almost a year and a half now. And one of the things that I'd like to press upon you today sort of answers this question of who regulates what. We know that the FCC has certain federal regulations and guidance that they've handed down to the state, and then the state has reviewed that guidance, and then it was codified first in 2020 and 2021. And the big question has always been, who controls small cells in the right of way? There is a preemption on local zoning. So as Amy said, local zoning we can't require a variance, we can't require rezoning. And so what the state has said, if you have another process that dictates the design of small cells, you can employ that. So that's our attempt today, is to take what the state has said that we can do and codify it through the permitting process. So these guidelines will be reviewed upon each application and then verified if they meet it or not. One of the things about having aesthetic guidelines versus zoning guidelines is that this will control design. Zoning is about use. This is about design. What will they look like? Where can they be? And one of the goals here was to create uniformity, so we don't see over 50-foot poles in neighborhoods. We want them to be under the 50 feet as required by state law, and different items like that. But also, one thing I want to tell you is that part of our process in establishing these guidelines was to mirror other communities. So we've looked at Plainfield, Carmel, Fishers, other localities that have already adopted something, and we made them have parity, and we made them have uniformity, so Indianapolis wouldn't be singled out as a place to go if you didn't want rules. I'd also like to mention that we have talked extensively with the providers about these guidelines. We've asked for their input. We have asked for them to tell us what the industry is going for, and I believe that these regulations are a mesh of all of that. The providers understand that our state law allows for this, and that our constituents and neighbors require this of us, for them to continue doing business at the level they've been doing. So I just wanted to include that. I can take any questions. I hope I answered your query from before.
I do have a question. So thank you so much for that detailed response and just laying out who's responsible for what. My only question is, to the gentleman's point, who is responsible for the safety of all of our citizens that, you know, will be exposed to radiation?
I think that's a valid point, and what I would say is this. Regardless of the local permitting process, which allows those to be cited, all towers are subject to those FCC guidelines. And all providers are required to report on those guidelines to the federal government. Now, I can't speak to their process for doing that. I can't say how often or how much oversight there is, but because there is a federal law that overarches all of this, there is that layer that speaks to things like health and safety, and not just location.
Okay.
So then this may be a question that Caitlin may need to answer, but is it fair to say then federal and state law allow these to come to our city? What we're trying to do is regulate the aesthetics of them, and that's the extent to which we can kind of restrict them.
Correct. Both the federal and the state law, and Katie, you can call them, tell us too, they say we can't preclude them. We have to allow them as part of a normal utility process. The Utility Regulatory Commission has co-signed this, that in the right-of-way, we have to allow them. So our goal, and I say the city's goal, not just VMD, not BNS, but the city's goal, is to make them less obtrusive to neighborhoods, to make them more integrated into the natural environment, or to co-locate. So look at these as a response to not every provider can co-locate on a telephone pole or a utility pole. So in the absence of that, they can, by law, state law, put them in. But we want to make sure that they are not causing interruptions or being nuisances to local streets.
Thank you.
Anything to add, or, I mean, that was,
perfect.
okay.
That's a big burden.
Other questions or comments? Seeing none? Is there a motion with respect to resolution 010?
I move that we pass resolution 2022-C10-010 as introduced.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second with respect to the resolution?
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor then of adoption of resolution 2022 C10-010 will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, that resolution is approved. Thanks for joining us. I know you came all the way down from downtown. I appreciate your contributions, and thank you, Amy, for presenting as well.
Thank you.
Oh, and it might be helpful to mention that I have already worked with BNS staff about providing training for all employees who do the reviews. So in the future, we'll continue on that relationship.
Okay, great. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is Resolution 12, and I think we may need to take these separately. They're appointments of administrative law judges. Just in case there's any conflict, I believe you work at a law firm, don't you?
I do.
But I don't think you have any of these people, but I just want to make sure, everybody has an opportunity to abstain if they need to. So Jacob, do you want to come up? And Jessica, could you introduce Resolution 12?
Resolution number 2022-C10-012 with the point of contact as Jacob Miller. This is a contract for administrative law judge services. This allows the Director of the Department of Business and Neighborhood Services to amend the existing agreement with John C. Kraus. The financial information is $65,000, and the funding source will be the BNS Permits Fund.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask, could we go ahead and introduce the second one as well, and then I can share information on both, and then perhaps we could vote on them
let's do that.
separately?
If you want to introduce it, we'll just vote separately on them.
So resolution number 2022-C10-013, again, the point of contact is Jacob Miller, and it's a contract for administrative law judge services, allowing the Director of the Department of Business and Neighborhood Services to amend the existing agreement with Mark K. Sullivan. Financial information is $15,000, and the funding source will be the BNS Permits Fund.
Thank you. BNS is requesting authorization from the board to amend the 2 professional service agreements for administrative law judge services with licensed attorneys John C. Kraus and Mark K. Sullivan. To carry out the necessary functions of the department, BNS requires the services of licensed attorneys to perform the duties of administrative law judges. These contracted administrative law judges serve as the hearing authority for the department's administrative hearings pertaining to matters of licensing, unsafe buildings, and environmental nuisances. In 2020, BNS issued a request for qualifications seeking qualified attorneys. Staff evaluated the application submitted and found the licensed attorneys John C. Kraus and Mark K. Sullivan to be qualified to perform the services required. The licensed attorneys were awarded contracts that are now due to expire June 30th, 2022. BNS now requests BNS board approval to amend the professional service agreements with respect to the terms and to John Kraus compensation. Both contracts shall be extended for 1 additional year, commencing July 1st, 2022, and expiring at the close of business June 30th, 2023. John C. Kraus compensation not to exceed limit shall be increased to $65,000. At this time, BNS is not seeking an increase to Mark K. Sullivan's compensation limit, previously established at $15,000. The rates of compensation shall not increase for the duration of either contract's term. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. Are there any questions with respect to either of these resolutions?
I'm just curious why John C. Kraus's limit is so much higher than the other.
So we assign these administrative law judges to different types of hearings, and John C. Kraus, I believe, covers unsafe building and licensing hearings and perhaps some environmental hearings, and Mark K. Sullivan primarily handles our high weeds and grass appeal hearings, and so there's just different volumes of those hearings.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, good question. Any others? Are you all okay with taking these together, or would you like to take them separate? I just want to make sure everybody got a chance to look at them and we can take them together. Okay.
Fine.
Is there a motion with respect to resolutions 2022 C10-012 and 013?
Motion to approve.
A motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
And there's a second. All those in favor of adoption of resolutions 12 and 13 will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. Hearing none, those resolutions have been approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great Memorial Weekend.
You too. Next, Sam, do you want to join us up here? And Jessica, would you mind introducing the next resolution for us?
Resolution number 2022-C10-014, the point of contact being Sam Hoshravi. This is a certification for trash lanes. Under Chapter 361 of the Revised Code of the Consolidated City of Indianapolis and Marion County, the Department of Business and Neighborhood Services is responsible for inspection, abatement, and enforcement of environmental public nuisances. In the event that the property owner does not correct the violation or cannot be found, the city enlists a contractor to abate that property. Section 361-107 of the Revised Code authorizes DBNS to abate the violation and charge the costs related to abatement to the responsible property owner. Section 361-107B3 of the Revised Code provides that in the event that these abatement costs are unpaid, the city shall place a lien upon the property. There are a total of 82 trash cases with a total amount owed of $46,736.08. The cases reflect outstanding fees 30 days past due as of May 26, 2022.
We're just waiting on the PowerPoint here. See if it works. No luck on the clicker. So, like Jessica said, we've got, for this certification, we have 82 cases totaling $46,736.08. This gives us an average lien amount of $569.95. And for this the highest amount for this certification cycle comes from case number VIO 22-001147. Located at 3300 Arbor Street. It's at the top of page 1 of the exhibit. The property is owned by an individual. It's a vacant lot, and it's 1.9080 acres. Based off the mailing address and PVD, this is an investment property. The abatement consists of 11 hours of labor, 5 hours of bobcat service. Items disposed of included mattresses, sofas, chairs, beds, frames, car parts, toilets, bathtubs, carpet, tires, TVs, plastic, piles of trash, bags of trash, discarded building materials, clothing, and scattered trash throughout the property. So quite a decent sized abatement. And then on the trash liens, on the zip codes here, the 3 highest zip codes for this abatement cycle are 46201, 46208, and 46218. And then it's kind of an even split between business and individually owned properties overall between the different zip codes in this cycle. And for the trash liens for 2022 year to date, including this cycle, it consists of a total of 369 cases totaling $204,135.55. This is an average case amount of $553.21. And then right now there is a reduction of 137 trash cases totaling $64,217 when comparing April year-to-date 2022 with April year-to-date 2021. Are there any questions for the board for this part?
So year to date, we have cleaned up over $200,000 worth of trash.
Yeah.
At least that's gone to lien so far.
Yeah, that's gone to lien, yes.
There's more than that because it hasn't gone to lien.
Exactly.
Okay.
Just what's going to lien.
It's a lot. Are there questions or comments from board members? No? Seeing none, is there a motion with respect to resolution 2022 C-10014?
Motion to approve.
A motion to approve, is there a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Is all those in favor of adoption of resolution 2022 C-10014 will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, that resolution is approved.
Thank you, board.
Thank you, Sam. And we have no other new business. I know a couple of you have had some meetings with members of staff. Encourage you to feel free to do that as needed as you want to explore, especially if it's your first term on the board, particular subjects, and then we'll continue to have either as part of a resolution or a separate report, other items to cover throughout the year. I think right now we have tentatively scheduled the next meeting for June the 22nd, which is a Wednesday. I think we're reaching out to you because we're not sure that that date will work, so we will follow up with you. We'll just simply say that our next meeting, we cannot do it on the same date in June. So we will see you in June at a date to be determined, but it will be here, and it will be most likely at 3 o'clock. So if there's no other business, we are adjourned. Thank you.